The second ball Nitish Reddy faced, Australia had already made a change. They were well on top. They were more worried about any weather or a drop in pitch making it hard to get the 14 remaining wickets than they were India. But the young Indian number 8 came in and instantly they made a change. Scott Boland was on and he had 3 wickets already, and this was his MCG. And yet Alex Carey came up to the stumps. That was because they know that while Boland has a psychosexual hold over most of the rest of the Indian top order, Nitish just wanders down the wicket and completely ruins his length. So despite the fact that Boland gets a lot of caught behinds, Australia were willing to punt on that, bring Carey up to the stumps, knowing that it was much less likely he was going to take any of those catches. That means that Nitish was in their heads before he had made a run. But while he has caused problems for Australia, he has done the same for India. He's a lower order bat who really hasn't shown much with the ball. He made his debut playing as a full seam and batting at number 8. Him making runs actually caused issues for India when it comes to their selections. In some ways, Reddy has been the problem, and in other ways, the solution. A test happens when you're asleep. Where do you find the best match report? A cricketer's backstory is meticulously crafted by a great writer, but it's a day you're not on social media, and so you miss out. We all do this. It becomes almost a full-time job to follow the sport you love. But there is a solution. The emailer Best of Cricket can tell you what the main stories are and the best articles every single day. And when they can't find them, they even write their own. Now, instead of trudging through Twitter or Blue Sky, you can just wait for the Best of Cricket to email or WhatsApp the greatest cricket stories straight to you. Subscribe to Best of Cricket today. Let's be honest, India were screwed when Nitish faced his first ball in tests. India were 73 for 6 at that point, and after everything that had proceeded in the disastrous home series against New Zealand, it felt like all hope was lost. He more than doubled their score from there, and his 41 didn't seem that important at the time, but a short while later when Australia were all out, his looked like the best knock of the entire first innings, and very important. In the second, he added another 38 not out with plenty of hitting. The issue though was the bowling, because he only delivered 7 overs. He got one lucky wicket through a Mitch Marsh drag on when the wicket was starting to fall apart anyway, but it was clear that his bowling was little more than handy. So he created what I like to call the Ashton Agar conundrum. In the 2013 Ashes, Australia weirdly decided to drop Nathan Lyon for the debutant Ashton Agar. It was a really odd decision because Lyon had taken a big bag against India in the previous match. Agar batted at number 11 and then went on to smash the world record for a number 11 and almost make 100. He struck the ball so incredibly purely and his face ended up on the front page of the English newspapers. But he didn't bowl well, even if Stuart Broad made it look worse than what it was. It would have made perfect sense for Australia to drop him and bring back Lyon. But how do you do that to a guy who's just made 98 and batted absolutely beautifully? It was clear that Australia thought even coming in, he might be a potential number 8 and maybe even moonlight as a number 7 one day when he developed. So they picked him for the next test at Lords. Agar took no wickets, made barely any runs, and Australia were 2-0 down in that series and it was pretty much already over. But you understand why Australia made that decision. Agar was a huge swing. They loved his upside. He was a great athlete who could bowl, bat, and field. And when he made runs, they just had to keep him into the side. But he was clearly not the spinner for English wickets, and as a prospect, he never panned out. Teams do take huge swings on all-rounders, but how they go on to develop as players is usually more of a mystery than it is for specialists. Because being good at 2 things means you spend less time working on each. And if you're a younger player, you are also still in development. Nitish Reddy was obviously a really exciting player, but no one really knew what he was going to end up to be. And even now, we don't know where he will finish. But he's probably going to finish very different from what he started as, which was a bowler who was a handy number 8. And in part, we know that because by the second test, he was already batting at number 7. Of course, part of his changing batting order has been because of different players, like trying to fit R. Ashwin into that side. But like Agar, he had been promoted for the runs he had made in the first test. And unlike Agar, he made them again. Coming in to bat at 87 for 5, he took India to 180, with again another 40-ish score. But again, India failed in the first innings as he looked good, dragging them to a respectable total. But this time, it was not nearly enough. He did chip in with another wicket, but again, it was a poor ball that was very lucky. And by that stage, India were well behind in the match as well. In the second innings, India collapsed again. And you will not believe this, but Nitish made another 40 odd. His scores in Test cricket were now 41, 38, 42, and 42. He had either created a glass ceiling for himself, or he truly believed that number 42 was the meaning of life. But obviously, India were going to struggle to drop him now. They were no closer to understanding what kind of a bowler he was. The idea would have been for Reddy to bowl around 10 to 20% of their overs coming into this series. Give India a genuine fourth option of seam. He has clearly not done that at all. At the moment, he's averaging 6 overs per innings. That is part-time, not frontline. And that's what he's looked like. Someone you can give a couple of small spells to, maybe before the break, but what he becomes as a bowler is still way too early to tell at the moment. He might work out how to keep getting those lucky wickets, or he might end up as a tighter economical bowler. He does not look like either of those right at the moment. And in a seam bowling friendly series, he has been a batter and a fairly infrequent bowler. If his bowling didn't exist, India would be in roughly exactly the same position in this series. But the one time he took an important wicket was at the Gabba. That's when he nicked off Marnus Labuschagne. Again, it wasn't a great ball, although it was certainly his best wicket-taking delivery so far. In the state of the game, though, it could have been quite important. Sadly, it wasn't because Australia put on a huge total anyway, and he ended up having to bowl for ages, the only time he's actually bowled a significant amount of overs, and Australia scored off him very easily. And in the innings that followed, he finally failed to make roughly 40, and he was also back batting at number 8. Now, of course, some of this is just because of India's all-rounder options. But realistically, when you watch him bowl, it really did look like India was now selecting a specialist number 8. However, because he has made consistent runs and then made the score today, even though he's been batting at number 7 and number 8, he has the second most runs this series and the most by an Indian player. That is not normal at all. And so, of course, India have this question of how to fit him in. They've ended up with 6 bowlers and 8 batters, which is a great lineup if your bowlers can take any wickets. And I suppose if your batters make any runs. And right now, when you look at the way he plays, he should be batting at number 6 with his bowling a little bit of a bonus when it comes off. Even if he would have batted at number 7, you're really not getting enough overs out of him to justify that. But I just want to put his runs into context here. He has made an awful lot for an Indian player on an Australian tour who is not yet 25. Just scoring 250 runs in your first tour is absolutely huge. But look at the names of some of the other players who've done the same. And remember, in this knock, he was scheduled to come in at number 7. There aren't many number 7s on this list. And at times, he's had to hit out with the tail, which has actually stopped him making extra runs. Today, because Washington Sundar stayed with him, that didn't actually cause any issues, so he could just bat properly. So this was really a top-order innings by someone coming in at number 8 because of India's weird Akash Deep night watch play the night before. There are some players who, when they bat at number 8, they bat like a number 8. But you look at Nitish Reddy, and these sorts of things do not seem to bother him. In this innings, he survived India's collapse, Mitch Starc coming around the wicket to trouble him with an angle, Nathan Lyon attacking his leg stump, and Pat Cummins trying to rip his throat out or his hand off with short balls. But the truth is, no matter where he's come into bat or what has been bowled to him, no player has looked more comfortable in this series than Nitish Reddy. Sure, it helps being down the order a little bit. We all understand that. However, when he's in, even on the tricky wickets, he is completely in charge of his batting. The issue towards the end of his innings today was that he was going to have to make his 100 off the bowler, who is also completely in control. Scott Boland was Australia's best bowler today, and this is his MCG. On top of that, Washington Sundar had been dismissed, and Nitish had scooped the ball straight up in the air to almost be caught for 97. Then Jasprit Bumrah followed, and so suddenly Nitish had to watch Mohammad Siraj face out the end of an over. And after all that, he still had to go up against Scott Boland on the MCG, the one bowler least likely to make a mistake to give him his 100. So what did Nitish Reddy do? He just took it. Because of the weird role that India has given him, Nitish Reddy's batting has caused problems for India. But today, it caused way more for Australia. Thanks to NV Play's data insights for helping me with this video. They can help any cricket team improve their skills using their advanced technology. It took God and the demon to build international cricket, but don't tell Johnny Bairstow. 1882, Australia had played one test in England against the god W.G. Grace, and they sucked. So they were playing him again, and it was a tough wicket. But England was in front, so Australia was desperate for a third innings lead.
At number 8 was young all-rounder Sammy Jones. After a routine single, he walks down to do some gardening on the pitch. Grace whips off the bails and appeals. The ball wasn't dead, Jones was run out. The Australians were furious. In fact, some of the English players were also furious. But what Grace said went, and the umpires had already given it. Next in was Fred Spofforth. He was known as the Demon fast bowler. He was furious, and he let England know exactly what was coming next, which was maiden. There's 12 maidens. I can't count them all. England only needed 85 to win. W.G. Grace made 32. England only 77. That was the test where the Ashes began. Buy my book, Overthrowing Cricket's Empire, on Amazon today.